Hello guys, welcome back to my channel and happy new year to everyone. So if you would like to see how I made this top, please continue watching. And I've already done the pattern drafting in a separate video. If you like to see that, please check my videos, you will see it there. So let's get right into the cutting process. So here I have cut out my fabric using my pattern paper. I added 0.5-inch sewing allowance on every side except for the side because I already done that while I was cutting the pattern. So I did that, and I did not cut out the neckline because I'm going to do that in the course of sewing. So the next thing now is for the back pattern. For the back pattern, I've drafted it as you can see. So what I did is I brought the side piece of the front pattern, placed it on this back pattern, making sure that every part is aligned, the waistline, every part. So from there I will now mark out the curve, so that the essence of this is to make sure that the front and the back, while I'm joining them by the side, so that they'll match up. So here I'm just marking out where the curve will start from. Then from there I'll blend it to meet the center back, like so. So when you do this, you won't have any problem when you're joining it. There won't be an issue of one side being longer than the other. So like I said, the as you can see from the pattern, there's no neckline yet. I'll be doing that while I'm sewing. It's easier for me. So here I'm trying to remove the excess zip bulge. I went in by 0.75 at the waistline. Then from there I will be blending it down to the hemline. Then I'll also be blending it to the upper part. This is to help remove that excess this excess folding that you see at the back of dresses or top. So after this, I'll just go ahead and cut out my pattern. Like I said in the previous video, I want the back piece to be a two-piece pattern, but you can decide to make yours one and just hold it that. But I'll be dividing this dart, I'll be removing this dart, so that I will have a two-piece pattern. So after cutting, this is what I have. I'll go ahead and cut out my fabric with it, adding 0.5 sewing allowance like I did for the front. So here I've gone ahead to add interfacing to my back front. This is my front pieces. I've added interfacing, I added wording at the breast area. So I'll go ahead and do the same thing for the lining. This is the lining. I've added interfacing as well. So these are the side piece, these are the side, this is the side back, and the other, this is also the side, this is the side front. So why I'm showing you this is because I added collar stay at the side. This is because I want that curve, I want that side to kind of stand. I don't want it to just relax. That's why I added this collar stay just added for the side pieces. I didn't add it on the center pieces. So after that, we'll go ahead and sew. So here I'm joining my fabric. I notch the bust point on both the center piece and the side pieces. So here I am joining. As you're sewing, be mindful of the curve where it starts. Make sure the notches match. You can use your pin to hold it if you're not very sure of it matching up. So here I'll just go ahead and join the pieces, then show you the next thing to do. So this is where that curve is, so be mindful, like I said, so that you know where to join and where to leave open. So here I've joined it, so you can see that the curve is coming out. I'll repeat the same thing for the back piece. This is the back piece. I'll join them together like so, using the sewing allowance. Be mindful of the sewing allowance you give, so that you don't exceed it or take less than that. So after joining this, I'll go ahead and repeat the same thing for the lining. Then here I have ironed the top, close the top. This is the main fabric. I also iron the lining. Also iron the lining properly. You can see the curve, you can see this stay I added by the side. This is the back piece, the main fabric. This is the lining fabric. You can see that stay I added at the side. So here I'm trying to get my neck, the asymmetric neckline. What I did is I folded my shoulder into half, notched it. So on one side, that is the longer, where the hem is longer, I came out by 3.5 inches. I came out by 3.5 inches, while at the other side I'll be going out by 4 inches. Then on this part that I came out by 4 inches, I'll go down by 7 inches. I've already done this in the pattern drafting video, so but just for you to see. Then I'll be joining these 3 points like this. So I'll join it this way. This depends on how you want. You can go lower if you want, you can come up, but I think this is okay. So after that, I went ahead and cut it out. So this is why I said I prefer doing it after joining it. And you can do yours while the fabric is laying flat. So after cutting, what I want to do here is to shaping my armhole properly, because you know when you're doing this princess cut, at times you don't really get the armhole when you're doing joining it. So here I want to make sure I bring out the armhole properly. So I think you should know this process already. You come down by your armhole, your depth, then you connect it to meet your shoulder, get the midpoint of your shoulder line, go in by half an inch. You know the process. So here I'm just marking my bust point, my bust measurement divided by 4. Then I'm getting the midpoint, coming in by half an inch. Then I'll be using my armhole curve to just get, this is just getting your armhole curve basically. So after that, I'll be cutting it out. So you know, because of the neck, this thing I did on the main fabric, I decided to do it on the lining. So I'll be using this lining now to cut out this armhole on the main fabric. This is my technique. If you have your own technique that works for you, fine. So here I am placing the main fabric on the lining the way it will be when I'm sewing it. So I'm making sure that every part is matching up, especially that down part. So after that, you are making sure every place is matching up, the shoulder, the armpit side. So you see here I've matched it up. So here I'm cutting out the armhole on the main fabric. Remember I did it on the line, so I'm using the lining now to cut out, to trace out the armhole on the main fabric. I have done that now, so it is time for me to cut out the neckline on the lining. I hope you understand this explanation. So I want to make sure that everything is aligned well. So I'm using my pin to hold it together so that it will stay well. So after that I will now be tracing out the neckline on the lining. Remember I said you place it the way it will be when you're sewing it. Make sure that your lining and the main fabric are the same. I didn't cut the lining shorter, I made it equal because of that symmetric hemline. If you make it shorter, you might run into problem. So after that, the next thing is to get my neck line for the back. So because it's asymmetric, I need to match up the parts like this so that the shoulders will match, the shoulders will be the same. So after doing that, I did it for the left, then for the right. So after doing this, I found out that they are almost the same thing. That is, the distance, the neck depth are the same thing. So I just place them side by side, then determine my neck depth for the back and cut. So for the neck depth, I'll be using 7 inches for the back. So I came down by 7 inches. I marked my 7 inches. Then I'll be using my curve to, get my desired neck line for the back. This is what I wanted. So I'll be cutting it out. be cutting it out. Remember I said that the neck widths are the same, that's why they are placed like that. So after doing this, I'll repeat the same thing for the lining. Cut out the neck depth also the way I did for the main fabric. So after that, the neck depth are ready. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to join the main fabric, join them on the shoulder, just the shoulder, main fabric to main fabric, lining to lining. I just join them on the shoulder, then I'll bring it back and show you the next thing to do. So here I've gone ahead to join and I've ironed. So the next thing now is to prep for our collar. So to do this, what I'm going to be doing is, the neck is asymmetric, so, and we have two collar, we have like two collar piece on the fabric. So I started from where my zip we start from. No, from that, after my zip allowance, I started measuring. You measure the longer side of the collar. So here I am measuring it. I'm measuring it. When I got to this point, I'll still measure, because from the picture you found out that the longer collar went to the side seam. So here I got 26.5 for the longer collar. So I will note that down, then I'll measure the shorter one. Remember, you start measuring from after the zip allowance. From after the zip allowance, you now measure. So now I'm going to be measuring the other shorter one that went down into that long one. So here I'm measuring from after my zip allowance. Sorry, my camera for some reason couldn't capture this place. So I just measured it to that V point, then I went down by like extra 2 inches. So that's the V point, which is I think 16.5. Then I'll be adding extra 2 inch because that one is tucked into the main fabric. So these are my collar pieces, the longer one and the shorter one. So I'll go to my machine and show you the next thing to do. So here I brought the fabric and the lining. You place them at the hemline. Make sure every part is matching up. So before you get to this point, as you're sewing, make sure that your lining and your main fabric are matching up. If there's any adjustments you do. So here I've matched them up for the front and also for the back. So mind you, I'm sewing the hem. The hem is where I'm sewing first. So this is the curve, that shorter curve. So I'll follow it. If you're a beginner, you can use your pin to hold it down first before you start sewing. So here when I got to that point, that V point in the hemline, when you get to that sewing part, you stop, then you turn the fabric, you pivot it, then you continue sewing down to that sharp point. When I also got to the sharp point, I stopped by the allowance I want to use, then I turn it, then I'll continue sewing on that curve line to stop at the side, if you get what I mean, to stop at the side like so. So if you keep making sure that your fabric and your lining are the same, you'll find out that everything will match properly. So this is the back side, this is the back hemline. Also, I'm sewing one part of it like this. You sew the hemline for the back like this, and I'll sew the other side also. Then the next thing is I'm going to be closing up the zip allowance. So here I'm sewing the zip allowance also, just to have a clean finish in there. So I'm closing up the zip allowance for the two side pieces. So after this, so this is how I notched that point. After that, I went ahead to iron it properly. Make sure you iron it well, the front and the back. So after ironing it, the next thing is for us to work on our collar. The first thing I'll do is I'll be closing up that zipper allowance, the 1 inch zipper allowance I gave. That's the only part I'll be closing up on the neckline, while the rest parts will be left open, but I will still sew them together, but I'm not turning it. The way you turn your neck. So after sewing that 1 inch, you notch and you turn. just the 1 inch, like so. So from there, I will repeat the same thing for the other side. You sew the 1 inch and you turn it, just your zipper allowance. You notch it, you have to cut it so that you'll be able to turn it and continue sewing the open part of the neckline. So from there, I'll start sewing. The essence of this is just to hold them together so that when you're sewing your collar, they will not be moving, they will be in place. So I'm going to run that stitch down to that sharp V, then I'll continue to meet the other side of the zip allowance at the back. So from here, we'll now proceed to attach our collar. So what I'm going to be doing here is, when I'll bring my collar piece, I'll bring the two collar piece, I'll close up one end. I'll close up one end of the collar pieces. You close it up, you turn it and iron. I'll repeat the same thing for the other collar piece. Close it up, you turn it and iron. So after ironing it, the next thing is to attach our collar. So what I'm going to do here, please pay close attention. I'll be placing this collar at the wrong side of the fabric, because after sewing it, you're going to flip it to the right side. That is how this particular collar is. So I'll be placing it at the wrong side. On that, you will be sewing from that's after your zipper allowance. That is where you'll be sewing. You'll be sewing it on that part that sewing you did to hold the main fabric and the lining together. That is where you're sewing your collar. So I started with the shorter collar first. So you sew it. When you get to that V point, you will stop, but you should have excess collar, that's the excess fabric, because you're not supposed to stop it there. You're not supposed to cut the excess there. You're going to tuck it into the longer collar. So when I get there, you see what I mean. So as I was sewing, when I got to that point, you see here, I got to that point. So I'm just going to stop there. I'm going to stop here and notch. So the next thing I'm going to do now is to notch. This will help your collar relax properly when you're done. So you notch. You also notch that V point. You notch it well, because we are going to be flipping the collar outward. Remember, we sewed it, we placed it on the lining, we sewed it inside. So when you're done, you're going to be flipping it outward. So at that sharp V, I'm going to notch it. So after notching, I found out that the stitch, went too down, so I had to loosen it a bit so that I'll be able to flip it open. But before that, I'm going to be top stitching that excess, sewing allowance under. I'm going to be top stitching it to the main fabric. So I'll be sewing it this way, making sure that the sewing allowance is on the main fabric. So you press it down, then you sew. It's not going to be on the collar will be on its own. You're basically trying to hold the sewing allowance to the main fabric. That way, this also helps your collar to relax. So I'm going to be running a stitch very close to the main stitch I just did, but not on the collar. You're not sewing on the collar. So I'll be running this stitch. I'll stop at that V point. So as you're sewing, you should be checking to make sure that the sewing allowance is still on the main fabric. So when I got here, I stopped. Then, so this is it. See me flipping it to the main fabric, so that at the other side it's closed up. Then you flip it. So you see there's excess after sewing it. This is because this shorter collar is supposed to be tucked into the longer one. You understand what I mean when I sew the longer one. So here I'll be sewing the longer one. The same thing. You place the collar on. You'll be sewing the collar under, that's on the wrong side of the fabric. So this time around the fabric is on top because it's easier for me since I'm sewing the other side. So the collar will be sewn on the inside of the fabric. That's on the wrong side. The collar is inside. When we are done, we're going to flip it outward. So as I kept sewing, when I got to this sharp V, I stopped here, but I will still continue. So after stopping there, I went ahead to notch. I will notch and also top stitch before I will continue sewing. Please pay attention. I know this might sound confusing, but if you pay attention, you'll get what I mean. So you see, when you flip it, it will come to the right side. So the next thing for me to do now is to top stitch. So I'm trying to show you how this will be tucked in, but my camera, yes. So you see how that shorter one we made will be inside, while the longer one we overlap it. So after that, after flipping it, I will go back and also do the top stitching like I did for the shorter part. You know the process. Make sure that the sewing allowance is on the main fabric and not on the collar fabric. Then you sew. While you sew, make sure that it doesn't shift. So I'm going to run this stitch till I get to that neck V point. So after running the top stitch, I'll now arrange. So here, what I'm doing here is I came down by 1.5 from my armhole line there, because that is where that collar we stop. That is where, as it goes to the side seam, it will stop. It will not go up to the armhole itself, so you have to come down. Here I am holding the shorter collar down so that I will sew the longer one on top of it. So you see here the collar is open. Just pay attention. So all we are doing here is just to overlap the longer collar, sew it across the shorter one. You are tucking in the shorter collar inward. So after this sewing now, I'm going to now close it up. After sewing, I'm going to close it up so you see what I mean. So here I'll just sew it and I'll stop at that 1.5 inch I came down by from my armhole. That is where the sewing will run from. See, I'm cutting that excess for the shorter collar. Then after cutting it, I will now flip the longer collar open. You see how it came out. The shorter collar is now tucked into the longer collar. So all I'm going to do here now is to go ahead and iron this collar. Make sure that it sits properly, because this collar can be very tricky. You have to iron it. So after ironing it, this is what I got. Iron it properly. This is what I got. So see, the excess is still there because I don't want to cut it off and maybe I'll now run out of. So here I am joining the side. Remember the allowance you gave. If you gave 1 inch, hold by 1 inch. If you gave 1.5, hold by, I think I gave 1 inch, so I'm sewing by 1 inch. So you see that this thing will match very well. That is why when you're cutting your pattern, make sure the front and the back matches well. So everything matched very, very well. So even if they don't match, look for a way to adjust it before you sew. So I'm sewing the both side, also for the right and the left side. After here, so okay, just watch what I'll be doing here. Okay, I decided to cut it off, leaving like 1/2 inch. So you use the back piece, place it on the front piece, then make sure that that collar piece is held down, so that when you're sewing it, it will balance well. So I'm sewing by my sewing allowance that I gave. So I'm going to sew it. I'm sewing from the down. It's better to sew from the down so that everything will match well. I'll sew from the down When I got to that collar point, I held it down, then sew till I got to my armhole line. So this is basically it. I'll go ahead, so I will attach the sleeve, iron it, and this is how it looks. So I have a separate video for the sleeve. If you would like to see how I made it, I will be posting the video very soon. I hope you enjoyed this tutorial. Thank you very much for watching. See you in my next video. Bye.